To Horror Nerds at Church, a ridiculously queer podcast where we take a deep dive into a horror film or space film and talk about how it connects to queerness, religion, and theology. My name is Pace, and I am Snoke's bougie golden high-collared bathrobe that he wears.
I love that. And I'm Pastor Emily, and I am the non-existent God who will give speed to the rebels.
And I am Brooke. And I don't have a funny name. I just have a joke for you. What do you call a burnt baked potato?
Ooh, tater. I don't know. Love it.
Tater.
A what?
I said, what do you call a burnt baked potato? Darth Tater.
I like it.
I didn't even give you a chance to answer. I was so excited about my joke.
I love it. It's too good, though.
Fantastic.
Anakin really was burnt and crispy by the end.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love it. Anyway, we are in our Star Wars sequel trilogy, which is, of course, the best of the trilogies. And if you want more Star Wars goodness, you can follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/horrornerdsatchurch. Starting at only $5 to sign up. It is cheaper than fancy secret signal devices to find your way to the mystery locations. And dropping this month on Patreon, you get our Prey movie commentary, which is also the best of the Predator series. And you get our Obi-Wan Kenobi BooTube, which we have not recorded yet, but we have watched. And our horror buffs, so those at the $10 and above tier, get our Solo movie commentary, which I have to admit Solo was much better this time than the first time I watched it. So there's actually not movie commentary, our Solo movie episode.
Yeah,
and Solo was much better this time than the first time I watched it. And you can hear why exactly we think that Han Solo is actually just Chewbacca's pet.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which
also
came back in last episode.
If you're thinking to yourself, listeners, and you're like, hey, they're still going to be doing their Star Wars season for another month past May, and yet they ran out of Predator movies and Star Wars movies to cover for Patreon. What are they going to do? Well, I guess we'll announce it here. We are going to be watching a movie commentary based on the film Spaceballs, because we have to. It's a Star Wars parody. And that'll be on Patreon for any tier. And then our BooTube next month will be Andor. But then our horror buff movie episode will be hopefully with special guests Kay and her husband Rory.
Kay and Rory Roloff.
Yes.
Kay is is my Nerds at Church co-host.
Yeah, and we're going to be watching and talking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which Kay argues is a horror movie, and I agree 100% with her on that. So that'll be next month.
Yeah, so no time like the present to join our Patreon. And we are so very super excited to have as a guest returning to us from her original podcast debut in our Ghostbusters season. We have Brooke McLain, whose infinite sapphic nature cannot be contained in a single sentence. She is currently a tenured barista, proud Honor Society member, and future senator. Welcome back, Brooke.
Hi, guys.
Woo.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Right? Anytime.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. There you go.
Yeah, we are super excited to have you. It is fantastic. And joyful.
Thank you.
So, what you been up to?
Uh,
What's going on in life?
so I have been working, and I think that I'm on my way to being promoted. I found out today that I'm going to another store that lost their manager, so we'll see how that goes, which I love my job, so
Wow.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm taking summer classes. Shout out to Arizona State University for giving me an education. And
But what is
Yeah.
the, not the one you're taking now, what's the next class you're taking? I forgot
I'm
what it's
taking religion and public life. No, just kidding. Religion and pop culture, which I'm really excited about.
Which is perfect for being on our podcast.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, we're setting you up for success.
thanks. Thank you. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
What about you, Base? What's up with you?
Today we are
Not in the
recording this.
what's up with you sense.
Yeah, today we are recording this in Pentecost, on Pentecost Sunday.
Woohoo!
So
I'm wearing
Emily
red.
is wearing red. Yeah, Emily got the memo. I didn't, but that's okay.
I
I
have
wore
red in my
blue, which I think
pants.
is also. Yeah. Oh, see, nice. I'm wearing blue, which I also kind of associate as a spirity color, though.
I have blue on too.
That old
please.
baptism water thing.
Yep. Right. But let's see. Life has been good. Just busy, trying to do that final stretch of the dissertation. So getting there. What about you, Emily?
I am wearing red for Pentecost and just finished rewatching this movie in Spanish with Spanish subtitles in honor of Pentecost because I did not have a preaching gig today. And getting ready for a conference that I'm going to go be a chaplain for the Episcopal Church in Pennsylvania tomorrow.
Cool.
And yeah, doing some art projects. I have one coming up for the Synod, doing a group mural, so I'm excited about that and excited to like do the art thing,
Nice.
which is weird and
It's
cool.
always fun when you get to call yourself a professional artist because you're making money doing art.
Right? It's amazing.
For real.
Mm-hmm.
In Star Wars news, you all may have seen that Sigourney Weaver, who we love from our Alien franchise, playing Ripley, the always amazing badass of that franchise, is going to be in the Star Wars movie now. She's going to be in the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu film that will be coming out in 2 years, I think. So it's not much is known about the movie or about who Sigourney Weaver will be playing, but still cool.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We'll probably do like a movie commentary on it or something. Because how can we not? Now that both of those franchises are in our...
Well, it will eventually be a full episode because the unwritten rule of Horror Nerds at Church is anytime a movie comes out to a franchise we've covered, we will cover that movie. So,
Okay.
as we did with
So
Halloween.
eventually we're just going to have like an entire season of revisited franchises. With like the next Ghostbusters.
Don't
the next...
forget. Yep. I was gonna say Sigourney Weaver's in Ghostbusters too.
Yep.
It's true.
And you guys
That's
covered
true.
that.
Even 2016, which was our last episode that had Brooke on. Woo.
So I'm personally excited that I started watching Star Wars at this point because I love Sigourney Weaver, probably for other reasons than everybody else. But I love her.
I mean, no guarantees.
Listen, I
Right?
don't know,
It might be
but
the same reason
Heartbreakers.
for me.
Heartbreakers. Lord. Yeah. So we'll definitely be going to see that. Don't worry.
Yep.
Yes, for sure. I have, just as a note of what I've been reading, I'm almost done with the 100 Years War on Palestine, which I've been listening to on audiobook. And I'm almost done with Sea Sparrow, which is the 5th in the Graceling Realm novels. And I'm excited because then I get to start my reread of the Lunar Chronicles books. Which is exciting. I'm in comfort read mode right now.
Are you to the point of gracing where you are 2 books that are new to you, or have you read the entire series before?
I've read the entire series before, but the last 2 books I've only read like one other time. The book I'm on now I've only read one other time, so I'm getting a lot of stuff that I missed the first time around.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still on my Animorphs reread. Still reading Star Wars. Most recently, I read Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which has a tie-in to this movie intentionally. And then I also almost finished the novelization of this movie by let me quick look up the name of the guy who wrote it. Jason Fry. So The Last Jedi, written by Jason Fry. So I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the movie because it's in there.
Cool. Yeah. Brooke is, reading school.
Yep.
Textbooks.
I should be doing that, so I'm not.
I mean, and also watching, the entire original Star Wars trilogy plus 2 movies.
Literally. I was actually talking about that today because I had feels in the beginning. I had feels. Then we got to like 5 and I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe I can, relax a little bit. And I really
By 5 we mean 4. Which we are
4?
By 5 we actually mean 7.
Yeah. But 7, what you said. By the time I got to 7, I was feeling better about it.
Yeah. And then 8 is just spectacular.
I was a little upset about a couple parts. But I was okay. I got through. With prayer.
Yep. As you need.
Yes. As we all need.
Those movies are... Well, we've talked about them, but... And we'll talk more about them in our retrospective.
Reference.
So...
Yeah. Listen.
Yep.
Real life family problems. For real. But we got it squared away.
Yep.
I mean, not really, but kind of. I mean, ish.
Well, today we are going to be talking about Star Wars Episode VIII, The Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson, who you may know for directing Knives Out, Glass Onion, Brick, Looper, those movies. And it came out in 2017, which is the same year that the live-action monstrosity of Beauty and the Beast came out. Wonder Woman came out. Oh my god,
Although
there were...
Beauty and the Beast is making a comeback with all of the bears. I'm just saying. Like, Beauty clearly chose the bear. And it paid off.
In the superior animated film, yes. In the live-action movie adaptation, that was a mess. But also listen to all these superhero movies that came out in this year. Jesus Christ. Wonder Woman, which was the best one that come out that year. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Justice League, Thor Ragnarok, the Lego Batman movie, Logan, which is an X-Men movie, all came out this year. John Wick Chapter 2, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, which I've not seen, but I've read the book.
No, it was a movie. I've read the book. I didn't know they made a film out of it. That's good. Everybody should read that / watch that.
Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, which is the 5th one, I think. The Little Hours, which is hilarious. Dunkirk, Blade Runner 2049, which is a sequel to the original Blade Runner, which was directed by Ridley Scott, who directed Alien. Professor Marston and the Wonder Women,
which is fantastic. We watched that a couple years ago, and I love it. I would like to own that. It is delightful. Also a great example of polyamory in the world when people assume that it doesn't exist. It's about the creator of Wonder Woman.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Also, we had Murder on the Orient Express, the Kenneth Branagh version.
Mm-hmm.
Coco, which I know is one of Emily's favorite movies.
I actually might watch it again today because it's Spanish language.
Right. We've done a movie commentary on that episode as well for Patreon supporters, so you can go back and listen to that.
We did.
Call Me By Your Name, which I'll mention for gay reasons, but I hate that movie. We'll talk about that one day. And then The Greatest Showman.
With some amazing music.
Yeah. And then one day we'll have to do movie commentary on that because I have opinions about that movie. So many opinions, TM.
The Greatest Showman?
Yeah.
All right.
Pace.
I'm here for it.
Pace, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I don't mean to run it back, but I don't want to forget to ask you. So, the first one, Beauty and the Beast, was horrible, live action. But how did you feel about the on-television Broadway version with her playing Belle? Because I fell back in love, and Shania Twain was Mrs. Potts. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Oh,
that
I
was
haven't seen
fantastic.
That one. And made me forget about that other one.
Yeah, that one is much better. Agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I just want to say
not seen
you can
that
just
one.
auto delete that one and just put the her version in there instead, and it's Happy Thoughts.
The other movie that did that to me is Hairspray. The original Hairspray I love, obviously, but then the musical adaptation with John Travolta I hate. But then they did the live televised version of the musical from Broadway, and it was so much better. So similar experience.
Heard.
But then we can get into the horror world for 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was a big year for movies. So Alien Covenant, which we're going to cover in 3 weeks from this episode dropping, I think, came out. The Mummy, which we covered the 1999 version in season 1, which Emily still has yet to see, I believe, right? Or
it's
have you
true.
seen it finally? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have not.
Resident Evil, the final chapter. Rings, which is a sequel to Ring. The Ring. A Cure for Wellness.
Are they trying to do the aliens thing? Jeez.
Yes. Get Out, Kong Skull Island, which I have talked to Emily about this before. I want so badly to do a Godzilla season, but the problem is there are like 40 some Godzilla movies, so it's like that would be a really long ass season. But that Kong Skull Island would be included in that. Anyway, The Devil's Candy, Life. Yeah, go ahead.
Is Skull Island the one with Samuel L. Jackson?
Yes.
Because I think that I don't think I watched any other Godzilla movies or King Kong movies. Godzilla, because I was thinking about the Godzilla versus Kong movie, which was crazy. But the one when they the very beginning of that movie was just shocking. When they go to that island and jump in, and like they weren't ready for King Kong. I love 100%.
One reason of many that I think King Kong and the entire King Kong franchise should be considered horror. But then also we had...
Wait, it's not considered horror?
No, it's action.
Like Kong Skull Island, people think it's action, yeah. But the lines between action and horror are blurry at best. And I'm here to queer those lines even more as much as I can with this podcast. 47 Meters Down, A Ghost Story, A Ghost Story has Rooney Mara in it, who played Nancy in the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. War for the Planet of the Apes, which is like the 50th in that franchise or something. Stephen King's It, Stephen King's The Dark Tower, which had Idris Elba in it. Love that man. Annabelle Creation, Victor Crowley, Mother, Leatherface, Happy Death Day, Jigsaw, Amityville, The Awakening, and The Shape of Water, which was set in Baltimore, so I had to include that. So, big year for movies. Did you see any?
Yeah.
I mean, you saw some of those, Emily.
I've seen Alien Covenant.
Not yet.
Oh, I will have... I'm going to see Alien Covenant.
Yes.
Soon. This season. I saw Get Out. Get Out was... That was...
Yeah.
I was actually just reading... I've seen an article from friend of the podcast, Stephanie Kaler, about the ways that marked a shift in horror, particularly like the popular horror into reality as horror, and so portraying racism as horror, and then that birthed like all of this, both in film and in books, of like, let's see, I happen to have the zine right here with me. The cover, flip-flops, decorated by a certain 6-year-old. But it's like, so Get Out then sparked books that involve like trans people, like being trans as horror. So The Spirit Bears Its Teeth and Hell Followed With Us. But then also like misogyny and body horror and Chlorine, Bad Cree and The Only Good Indians, looking at like the role of Indigenous people in North America, the reality of Indigenous people in North America as horror, and Wrath Becomes Her about anti-Semitism and all sorts of things. But it's fantastic, and a lot of that really took off in response to Get Out and the success of Jordan Peele's Get Out.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I like to say about horror. Has always been one of those genres that can showcase reality as horror, but like you're saying, Jordan Peele's Get Out just turned that into like a money-making machine for Hollywood, that it was able to produce like open the floodgates for this kind of new wave of horror, which is so awesome, because before, as we know, Hollywood is always like trying to pigeonhole their black directors and stuff into various genres and not really allow for that.
Shout out to whoever directed They Clone Tyrone, because that movie broke a whole bunch of boundaries for me. I had to stop it 3 times like it was a scary movie. And here's the thing. There was no scariness or jumping in the movie. It was just what they were talking about was scary. And I feel like, they did an excellent job with that, because it made you think about stuff. And your thoughts were what became scary. And I think that that's a whole nother level of telling a story and using your art to have a voice and tell the world, hey, what's up? Y'all are doing a lot of stuff.
And John Boyega, who plays Finn in this movie, is the leading character, and They Clone Tyrone too. So another connection with Star Wars.
It was hard for me to watch him in that light. First of all, seeing him as a stormtrooper, I was like, hold up, bro. They got my man in here. My man's working for the man. And that's not cool. But it's good to see how far he's come, because he's still out here doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the movie, but in real life.
So, speaking of Star Wars, Brooke, this was the first time that you watched the original trilogy as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts you want to share with us before we really dig into The Last Jedi about the original trilogy, The Force Awakens, which was the first of the sequel trilogy that we watched? Because up until this, you particularly loved Rogue One. I love Rogue One, so I'm right there with you. But Rogue One is very different than the original trilogy.
I'm going to be really transparent. I come from a black household where no one was watching Star Wars. And I wondered, why didn't we watch Star Wars? And then I watched it.
Yep.
And then I found out this is why we didn't watch Star Wars.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
So, I'm only going to touch on a couple things because I've let some go. The one thing I will not let go is them having Princess Leia. Oh, now let me say, I'm not going to say them. Jabba the Hutt had Princess Leia on a chain around her neck.
Mm-hmm.
That was weird for me. I mean, if you wanted to make a point, you could just put shackles on her. But you put it around her neck. Weird. Number 2. I don't really know how old she was when... this is 1.5. I don't know how old she was when she was in that situation. But for me, sexualizing her character was weird. Again, not something I would want to maybe show my daughter, And here's the tea. You got to get to the end to find out that she's running the resistance. But that's a while. You don't find none of that out for a while. And my thing is, it's like another one of those things that women do not get the respect in the media, and that's annoying to me.
Yeah.
So, number 2. Number 2, I feel like number 2 is my biggest one about Star Wars. And I feel like it's not just because... Actually, no. I do feel like it is because I feel like all the big, iconic, legendary movies in our country are always ones that don't have black people in them. And I'm just going to throw some out there for you. Star Wars. That's number 1. Number 2 would be Wizard of Oz. Number 3, Gone with the Wind. And then 4 is Song of Music, or is that what it's called? Song of Music, or...
The Sound of Music.
The Sound of Music. We didn't watch that. We watched Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, because that had banging music. But the other one we didn't. There was no black people in that. So my thing is, why do we, build up these movies that don't have diversity? Why are we, still, carrying on? I'm not going to call it, I don't know. Why are we still carrying on movies like this that are not helping our children? Mm-hmm. That's all. That's how I feel about it. And then 3, I made this 3 because I wasn't even sure if I was going to bring it up, but I am. Emily, this bothered me from the very beginning, that it's confusing that those two was kicking it, and you know who I'm talking about. Princess Leia and her brother, they were kicking it. And then all of a sudden we found out that they were siblings, and everyone acted like we forgot about all the other stuff. That's confusing. Mm-hmm. If you run all the movies back on the Disney Channel, it has a whole folder. If you run those movies back, none of that makes sense. Yeah. And then what are we supposed to do? Explain to our kids? Well, now they're brother and sister, so it's cool. No. But I have to say that it was a ride for me from beginning to end because I had feels in the beginning. Towards the end, I felt better because, there were more women with, authority, And I know that, what's my girl's name? Phasma? Phasma, is that what her name?
Are you talking about
Phasma?
Phasma from Game of Thrones?
No.
The Game of
Isn't
Thrones
her
person?
name Phasma in here?
The trash compactor?
The silver lady? Because that's Brielle from Tartar or something. Right? From Game of Thrones, right? Mm-hmm. And that's her name.
That's what people
Plasma?
tell me. Mm-hmm. Phasma is the character.
Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure because I wrote down Plasma. I was like, hold up, am I tripping? Even though she was bad,
Christie is the actor.
Yeah, I love her. I wrote her name down because I knew it was her immediately, and I was excited that she got to play another powerful woman in another thing, and not just Game of Thrones because I feel like, she didn't get the respect in there either, but that's a whole nother story. But
I also really liked that they brought Maz back because it was easy for us to assume that Maz was dead. But like any good horror trope, we didn't see a body, so we couldn't count her as dead.
When did we think she was dead?
When they destroyed...
Yeah, but then the Resistance came and she was seen talking to Han before they fly away. Or to Finn,
I was getting it mixed up, I think. Okay. Well, in any case, I'm glad that she did not die and was back even for a sadly small role, but because she's fantastic.
Agreed. This is the first movie to have a non-white woman as a main character. So we have Kelly Marie Tran play Rose, so we'll get there. I have a lot of behind the scenes for this one, but I guess when you talk about when we first seen it, when did you first see it, Emily?
I first saw it in theaters, and it came out after Leia had died, but I didn't realize that they had filmed it all before... But not Leia, but Carrie Fisher. I didn't realize they had filmed it all before Carrie Fisher died. And so when I went to see it in theaters, I did the thing that Pace does with everybody, but I did it with Princess Leia, where I spent the entire movie anxious about when General Leia Organa was going to die. And then she didn't. And I was like, huh? So... in the future, I will probably either look up the information myself or ask somebody so that I know if something like this happens where an actor dies, so I know if they're going to die in the movie or not, so that I don't have to spend the whole movie anxious about it, because then I missed out on some things. And this is quite possibly my favorite of the Star Wars movies, and so don't want to miss out on stuff. So that was my first time watching it, was in theaters. What about you two? I mean, I kind of know the answer for Brooke, but...
Yeah, go for it, Brooke.
My first time was, I'm just kidding. My first time watching Star Wars was like 3 weeks ago.
This episode, this movie, though, was...
I finished it last night.
Yeah, I was like, we started watching it Friday, maybe, but yeah.
And it's because I wanted to really pay attention, and so I picked a time where I could really pay attention to it and take a lot of good notes, because I liked that one, actually.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What about you, Pace?
I saw this for the first time, I'm pretty sure, on opening day, Friday, in the day, because I talked before about how my ex's and my tradition was to go to our movie theater in the day, because we had both had Fridays off, and we worked at churches, so it's like we were able to go on a Friday during the day before the crowds came out and see a movie in a fairly empty theater. There's probably like 20 people in the theater, but that's it. And I loved it. I don't want to spoil our ratings for this, but since Emily and Brooke have both
just
said that it's their probably their favorite. Sure. I know, that's what I'm saying. Is probably one of my favorites as well. So, we'll talk about all the reasons why. But I have some behind the scenes for this movie. When Disney bought Lucasfilm, they announced pretty much right away that they're going to do a sequel trilogy. Rian Johnson was announced to be writing and directing the second installment, pretty much at the same time that the first installment was announced with the director. And then Colin Trevorrow was announced to be the director for the third film, but he ended up not directing it. We'll talk about that more in the next episode. Ooh. But anyway, Johnson was very intentional about this. He wanted Rey's parents being nobodies or people of no galactic significance to mirror the shock of Vader being Luke's father. So he was like intentionally...
absolutely love.
Yes.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because if you remember, after the first one came out, everybody was obsessed with who is Rey's parent. We know Ben Solo's parent is Leia and Han, but is Rey's Obi-Wan's daughter? Is it Luke's daughter? Whose daughter is Rey? And there was all that fan speculation. And so it was really this big shock for everybody. And that's part of the negative stuff. We'll get there in a little bit. But of course, this would also be done in the next movie. More on that in the next movie, too. Agreed. That's bullshit. I don't want to spoil too much about that movie because I assume that Brooke has not seen it yet.
But we might be able to get her to see it now.
So,
it's the final one of the trilogy.
Maybe not.
Fair.
I'm just kidding.
Fair.
I'm totally in. I'm just kidding.
You're gonna watch it with me. I'm pretty sure.
And then the island that served as Ahch-To is an island in Ireland. Skellig Michael. I know I am pronouncing my Irish pronunciation of that poorly. Apologies. But the porgs were created intentionally because of the seagulls and puffins that live all over the island. It would have been too expensive to digitally edit out every bird that appeared in the background, so they ended up just creating a species that looked similar enough to a mixture of a seagull and a puffin to kind of, if you see a seagull in the background or a puffin, you can just assume it's a porg. So that was pretty clever.
Brilliant. That is brilliant. I love the porgs, so I'm here for it. They're like the Ewoks of the trilogy series.
The sequel trilogy, yeah.
The sequel trilogy, yeah.
I looked them up today because I wanted to know exactly what they were. And they were called sea-dwelling beakless birds. That's what they described them as.
Love it.
And I was like, dope.
Yep. This also has the most practical effects in a Star Wars film since the original trilogy. Practical, of course, being not CGI. So this one relying on going back to the basics of practical effects and then often enhancing them with CGI. And I have long been of the opinion that the best way to do CGI in a film is to use it to enhance practical effects as opposed to just replacing practical effects. And I think this movie looks great, and this is a great example of that.
That makes sense to me now.
I never have thought thoroughly about that, but I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And I mean, you can see this in Yoda. This was a puppet Yoda. They brought back the puppet Yoda. He was not CGI'd, and I just think Yoda looks so much better in this movie than the prequel trilogy where he was CGI. So
yeah, Yoda looks great. The green looks good.
See, okay, I have mixed feelings about the CGI and the practical, stuff. The only reason why I have mixed reviews about that is because that's one of the things that I looked for the whole entire time we were watching this movie. Only because I used to be, because me and Chris Pratt aren't friends anymore, but I used to be really into Guardians of the Galaxy. And so I compare every single space movie that I've seen the past 10 years, I compared it to those graphics in those movies. And I want to be honest with you, I feel like everything looked great until one part for me. When you meet Snoke, is that his name? Snoke. Okay, Snoke. When you meet him, they tried to do too much with his face. I feel like they could have just used makeup with that, because in my notes I wrote that they jacked up the CGI on his face, which was unfortunate because I promise you they could have put prosthetics on him and it would have been rocking, because some makeup artists can hook
or
it
have
up.
done like a puppet like Yoda too, something like that, as opposed to just a really bad CGI.
And
wasn't hitting.
When he was dead, his face looked like it was prosthetics.
Probably
the
for that
face.
scene, but when he was talking,
right? But everything else no, but that scene, it looked like it. So they definitely could have, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, Brooke.
I don't even think that was him.
Agreed.
That wasn't him laying on the ground. That wasn't his face. That was fake. That was
yeah.
mold.
It was made up, but it was not CGI'd. Is what I was trying to say. Like, they had the ability to create that face. 100. Okay, yeah, because they could have used that on him from the jump. I wouldn't have been scared of him. I would have been like, "You're not even scary, my man."
Right. Also, a little bit behind the scenes, as Emily alluded to, is Carrie Fisher died. She died in January of 2017. This movie came out in December of 2017, so almost a year after she died. And when she died, though, they announced that she had completed filming her scenes for the movie, and so they wanted, the family and the director decided that it was best to leave her role intact as opposed to trying to kill her off or something to explain her not being in the third movie. So they just kept her entire performance intact, which I love as a way of honoring her performance.
Clearly, I was not paying attention to the news at that point in time. I had other things. That was right when I was moving. I had other things on my mind.
In the next movie, we'll talk about how...
that was right after an election, so...
that too, yeah. In the next movie, though, we'll talk about how they got her to appear in a few scenes for that, in the behind the scenes for there. So here's the crap about this movie, which is this movie has gone down in history and pop culture as the most controversial Star Wars movie, which is entirely not based in fact.
Ridiculous.
Because critics and many fans love this movie. There was a lot of backlash from a small segment of the Star Wars fandom, but by and large, those who loved the film praised the risks it took, the inventiveness of this plot, the storyline, and the acting. Those who hated it, by and large, disliked the diversity. Kelly Marie Tran, who plays Rose, was particularly subjected to racist and sexist sexual harassment to the point of needing to leave Twitter and social media. A lot of people hated Luke's characterization and that he was no longer heroic. They did not like the unexpected death of Snoke.
I feel like when we say a lot of people, we should just name a lot of incels and like the cishet white boy entitled fans.
Yeah, a lot of the small segment of fans. That's the point I'm trying to make. This is a small segment of fans, and these are the things that they have said. They dislike Luke's characterization and him no longer being heroic, the unexpected death of Snoke, and they're also very disappointed over Rey's lineage, to the point that some commenters on this pop cultural phenomenon said it almost seems like they were mad that their fan theory was not proven correct and believed so hard in their fan theory that when confronted with a different story, they were unable to cope with it, which I kind of find it a little hilarious. Your fantasy is so strong, you can't deal with reality. That checks out for incels.
Yep.
But in reality, though, a large representations of polling audiences have ranked the film. So from post-track audiences leaving the theater, ranked it 89% positive. That's like, right?
Nobody gets
Cinema
that good
score,
of ratings ever.
Yeah. Cinema Score rated an A based on polling a large swath of audience, but the review bombing campaign of some of the small minority of Star Wars fans did it on Rotten Tomatoes and a few other sources and bombed the film so that it only had like a 2% rating or something on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff like that.
So ridiculous.
Yeah, and we saw this exact same thing with Ghostbusters 2016, like the exact same kind of backlash that this movie had a year later. Rian Johnson, and the backlash was to the extent, and like for the pop cultural thing of them saying this is a controversial movie, led them to change the final movie in the trilogy, and we'll get to that next season.
In really harmful episode. And awful ways.
So, we'll get there. But Rian Johnson, though, was the Lucasfilm loved this movie and critics loved this movie. So when it was trending really positively at first, Rian Johnson was announced to be writing and directing his own Star Wars trilogy. The same director of this movie was given permission to write and direct his own Star Wars trilogy of films unrelated to the Skywalker saga, other than it just taking place in the same galaxy. But due to the very significant backlash from a very insignificant and small portion of the fandom,
backlash from assholes.
Yeah, it appears that this was quietly canceled. So Rian Johnson has not done any Star Wars since. He's been doing his amazing Glass Onion, Knives Out stuff. But
those are such good movies.
Right.
Such good. I love me a murder mystery, honey.
It's true.
Love it.
It's true. Yeah, that's just such a. I know we have like at least one cishet white guy who listens to this podcast, but really, like, y'all got some stuff to answer to.
As a representative of the Black community, we weren't in this one.
Yeah.
Because I just want to say that the fact that these people had issues with this movie is not because the storyline changed. It's not because there's Black people and all different colored people in there. It's because they have issues. And it's sad that the fact that Luke Skywalker's, change in path made people so upset, that's a shame. Because the reality of the situation is that he didn't sit there and camp there. He didn't stay down. He got up. And that's the real story. And the fact that they don't see that, that's because they're down and can't get up.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is worth like explicitly naming that this was the first year of Trump's presidency.
Oh gosh. Sorry.
And this came out just before just before Christmas, right? So at the end of the first year of Trump's presidency, when people were pissed about Trump, but also Trump's supporters were getting really riled up. And so that space of like putting out something that goes so explicitly against what Trump was for, also like that's just what Trump was doing at that time.
Yeah.
In our country, and is doing again at this time in this.
Right.
Womp womp. But yeah. So now it's time for our 1-sentence summary. So if you could summarize the movie in 1 sentence. What is that 1 sentence? Brooke, if you want Pace and I to go first, we can.
I'm going last. Thank you. I'm going last because I need to.
Okay. My 1-sentence summary is Rey's persistence saves the day. Again.
Mine is the, in parentheses, second to last, the last space movie. Because it's the Last Jedi.
Okay. Brooke.
The resilience still wins. Is that good? The resilience
That's great.
wins.
Yeah. I like it. So, as per usual, our 1-sentence summaries tell you very little about the movie, which is mostly how we do. So let's walk/roll, because I think we're all in rolly chairs, through the movie and just kind of talk about the stuff that we love, any big things, that sort of a thing. I have to say, to start out with, I absolutely adore Poe's waiting/leaving a message thing where he's like, Hi, this is Poe. I need to talk to Hux. And then Hux is like...
He doesn't even say Hux. He says Hugs purposefully to make fun of Hux. I need to talk to General Hugs.
That's right. I Loved that though. And then Hux is on there and he's like, I'll wait.
Yep.
Yeah, just to like buy time and stuff. It was hilarious.
Yep.
So I loved that part. Yeah. I also, now they're using back to suits instead of back to tanks, I take it. Because Finn just like rolling off the bed thing and then walking around in an almost naked see-through suit filled with the back to stuff. I was like, okay, yep, that's where we're at.
And BB-8 like commenting something to that effect, and Poe being like, "Did you hit your circuits worse than I thought you did, or something?" It's like, "Oh wait, no, you're describing what's actually happening." It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I will talk about Poe more in the deep dive, because there are also some Poe moments where I'm like, where it's like part of why those fans were mad is because the people they see themselves in are the ones who fuck it all up. But
so true.
Yeah.
But that's also like life. We all fuck up. Why is it bad to see people fuck up? And then the better part of learn from their mistakes and do better, which is what I think is the core of this movie. When you fuck up, you learn from it and you do better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Also the porgs, they're just so cute. I already said that, but they're so cute.
Agreed.
Yep.
My fiance thought they were the cutest. So
Aw, they
I
are.
had to pay attention to them.
Yeah. Right.
You can get stuffed porgs. I really think everyone should go out and get a stuffed porg if they can, because that would just make life so much happier.
That. She would love that. Good call, Pace.
Then we finally see Kylo again, and Kylo the Edgelord, as I call him in this movie.
Susanna, while we were watching, Susanna was like, Luke is where emo Kylo gets it from.
Which, I'm like, not Vader, though? Because I feel like both Luke and Kylo get their emo from Anakin. Anakin started it.
I mean, for sure Anakin started it, but there is definitely a sense of, like, Luke. Because at this point we had, like, met Luke. And so it's like, yeah, Luke is definitely giving emo vibes on this.
He going through it. He's
right. But that's what. But then we get like Leia, who just fantastic. So the scene where I think you thought she was going to die, I guess, I don't know how it was.
Yeah, that was
where
I was like, oh, this must be when Leia dies. Because Carrie Fisher is dead, so Leia has to die.
So then, how did you react to seeing her, like, totally become badass, wield the Force, and fly back to the ship and shit? That must have been amazing in the theater. Not expecting it.
It was really cool, and also then I was like, so they're just gonna keep her in a coma for the rest of the thing, because she's dead. And so, I still thought that this was her, like, their way of treating her death.
Interesting.
It was not, but... Yeah.
I was cheering, like, on opening day, seeing this, my ex was there, like, both him and I and the entire theater just cheering at this scene. And then the fact that so many of the scare quotes, not real fans who are the worst incels, hated it. And like, why is Leia suddenly so powerful in the Force? It's like, she was always fucking powerful in the Force, y'all. Where were you when when Luke says at the end of Return of the Jedi, my father has it, I have it, my sister has it. So.
And he does they do the sensing where each other are.
Right.
As they're flying away, and she's not even thinking about what is going on with Luke, and then it's like, oh, we have to go rescue him off of Cloud City.
Yep.
Whatever thingy. Yeah. With
a little bit of training, she clearly was a very accomplished Force wielder.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. They just mad. Listen.
Yes. They are just mad.
They're just mad. That's all.
Yep. Also, I think the first time I saw this, I thought the Vice Admiral was Mon Mothma. She just kind of disappears, right?
Mon Mothma, she is not in the sequel trilogy, I don't think.
Yeah, she just kind of disappears from...
Because we know that she was the High Chancellor at some point. I assume by now she wouldn't be anymore because she was the High Chancellor in the early Republic. So my hope is she retired and hopefully survived the destruction of Hazian Prime, but we don't see her.
Yeah. But I love what the Vice Admiral does with Poe.
Vice Admiral Hodo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Played by Laura Dern, by the way, who fantastic actor. Laura Dern, Jurassic Park is what I think most people are familiar with her in.
Yeah, love her.
Sorry to interrupt, Emily. Continue.
No, it's good. She's fantastic. I love Rose. Part of what is so great about Rose is that she is very clearly considered a nobody. Like, I just love... As much as this is about failure and growing from it, this movie is also about nobodies being a part of the rebellion and being important to the rebellion. And she's like, I've had to stun however many people trying to, like, just ditch while Finn is literally trying to ditch. And presumably
like
to save Rey, but, like, nah.
Yeah. And, like, the flip of that, like, just, that's one of the things that's so brilliant about this film to me, and, like, so well done. And you see this in Knives Out and Glass Onion, too. Rian Johnson's just really great at flipping expectations. And so to have Poe literally be called by Rose in that, or not Poe, Finn, literally, Rose calls him, you are the Resistance hero, as he's trying to leave, and she's the nobody there who prevents him leaving. Just love that. Love it.
Yeah. She's fantastic. And then it, like, turns into this idea that runs awry, but, or that, like, maybe could have actually been something if they had talked to actual people in charge.
Right.
But, yeah. Also, I love the Frog Nuns. I just love all of the characters on Ahch-To. Like, everybody hanging out with Luke. Those Frog Nuns. Who really, like, have to despise Rey by the end of it, because they're like, first you shoot 100%. A hole in the building, then you knock a giant boulder on top of our cart. And,
Yep.
But they're cute. I like them.
So we get emo, pissy Luke the entire movie until towards the end. But one of the things I love that makes him change his mind and stop doing his edgelord thing is R2 projecting the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope" from the original, and that's what gets him to be like, oh shit, and come out of his self-pity. Because R2 saves the day once again. You call this Rey saving the day, but really it's a team effort between R2 and BB-8 who saved the day in this one.
Well, I do think that Rey gets some credit, but when I was reading it, I was like, I should have added the droids that also, because R2 and BB-8, I think R2, BB-8, and Rey save the day.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's a team effort. They're the Trinity of Hodo, saving.
So many.
Speaking of Holy Trinity coming up, the Holy Trinity of Rey, R2, and BB-8.
Yeah.
BB-8 is my homie. I feel like BB-8
so cute.
is just, you're saying all these people, it was a group thing, but if it wasn't for BB-8, none of them would be alive anyway. So
it's true.
Yeah,
it's really
true.
Yeah, because I love them all, but they're just not no computer joystick like thing that could drive everything. None of them did that. So shout out to BB-8.
Agreed.
Yeah. I also want to point out, so I like, one of the things I enjoy doing on this podcast is pointing out where the people are like, where the incel fans are speak so poorly of something they hate about the movie and being like, actually, no, this is cool for this reason, and you're totally wrong. And so one of those is the Luke and Kylo scene where Luke approaches Kylo with the lights, well, Ben at this point with his green lightsaber, and seems like he's going to kill him. And we see this this same exact scene happened 3 different times, and each time you see it something's different. And so this has been inspired by Rian Johnson was inspired by Akira Kurosawa, a great director, very famous director, but his film Rashomon, which tells of a tragic sexual assault and murder, but it tells it from 3 different perspectives, each giving something new and each telling a different falsehood, and then the 4th was the actual truth. And so in this one we get Luke's version, which he tells out of shame, so he's hiding the truth there. Then we get Kylo's version, which is told out of anger, and he's hiding the truth there. And then finally when Rey confronts Luke at the end, he gives her the true version, which is both better and worse than Luke's and Kylo's, but that's how it often is with the truth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, partly Luke has learned this from, Yoda and Obi-Wan, who are like, your father killed, or Darth Vader killed your father.
Right.
Darth Vader is also your father. And somehow killed himself and is still alive.
Right.
But that like, what are the truths we tell and how do we tell them? And how are they truths and how are they not the full truth?
Yeah. Right. Unreliable narrator, something that has come up a few times on this podcast. And who is narrating and can we trust their version of events in this scene?
Yeah.
So, there's also the Canto Bite scene, which was really cool. There's a companion short story collection, which is, I think it's called Tales from Canto Bite or something that's all about this. I haven't read it yet, but I want to. But just this like Las Vegas-y, or not even Las Vegas, but
Space
more like
Ocean's
Monaco.
11. It's
yeah,
Space
this like
Ocean's
casino
11.
I would love to watch that.
where they're just profiting off of death and destruction, and so they can be removed. The rich people removed from the actual poverty and violence happening in the universe and oppression of the first order.
Yep. Yeah. Again, I really like Rose. I'm just saying it every time. I really like Rose, and I love BB-8 in this. And like the one character who's like just putting coins into BB-8. He thinks BB-8's a machine, and then BB-8 uses it to like
as projectiles.
Help take down
So fun.
Yeah.
Also love the getting to Rose, just like the spark of the rebellion, that little ring or pendant she has, and that's what inspires these everyday kids to like be on their side. And it's true what Hodo says also in her speech about how the resistance is going to be a spark of a rebellion that will light the entire galaxy, is what they're hoping, which is why the resistance has to survive.
Yep.
They did.
Yeah. Also, I love the love at first touch. Maybe not, of Rey and Kylo. Definitely not love at first touch, but there is this weird thing with the two of them. It is 100% not sexual tension, I promise you. If anything, we got the triad of Finn, Poe, and Rey.
Yeah, I don't think it's even romantic attention. It's just she wants to reach him and she sees the hurt in it. That's part of the thing that we are revealed by Snoke linking Kylo and Rey. And the book tells us that this link happened. Snoke forced this link when Poe was interrogating Rey in the first film. So that's when the link was created. And so Rey and Kylo have seen each other's souls and know the turmoil in each other's souls, and that is what is kind of connecting them. And that, so it's like trauma bonding.
We might call it a trauma bond. Yeah.
not a romantic or sexual connection. So
yeah.
I also love that Yoda's a puppet. I already said that, but so well done.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brooke. Sorry.
Brooke?
I was really hoping that he wasn't going to start tripping, but I had a feeling he was going to start tripping, and I was just like, leave him alone. Just go.
Well, and he's just such a good incel, right? Rey clearly is not romantically interested in him, and he still is like, everybody else thinks you're nothing, but come hang out with me because I think you're. And it's just like, that's not how you get the girl.
Mm-mm.
Right.
For friendship, for
not how
romantic
you get the
relationship,
girl.
for anything. Just not how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did love when Rey ends up leaving without Luke and Ghost Yoda shows up, and then and Luke's like, I'm gonna go burn it all down, and then can't even do that, and then Yoda just sends lightning and laughs at Luke because he's called the bluff, and because, you know, Yoda already knows that all of the books are in the Falcon and safe and stuff, but
Yeah.
just like that, calling the bluff of Luke, and that Luke didn't even read the books, right? At one point, Yoda's like, Luke's like, all those sacred books, and Yoda's like, sacred books, and you read them, right? And Luke's like, well, no. But still, how many times do we not read the sacred books, but still hold them of higher value than
Yep.
people's lives?
Mm-hmm.
Love their relationship. Luke and Yoda's relationship is so special, and I love that scene because it was just a real, like, family moment, like when your pop finds out you did something weird and they come try to talk to you or something, and you know, they don't want to completely make you feel bad, but they want you to think about it. And I love Yoda in general because, you know, he always has such enlightening, like, things to say, even though they're usually puzzles for me. Every time I'm like, what? Like, but it always means something, and I love their relationship. I love how much Luke actually, like, trusts in him. I love it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. I also just adore the twist of Snoke getting killed here. Because nobody's expecting it. Everyone's thinking it's going to last till the third movie and be the main villain. But Kylo killing him as a surprise, and then teaming up with Rey, and just how much of a badass she is. We'll never get over how much of a badass she is. And how Kylo's able to hide his intention of killing Snoke behind pretending to try to kill Rey by turning his lightsaber at the same time he's turning the Snoke lightsaber to mask it to Snoke, so it would appear that he was only doing it to his lightsaber. Just so well done. Such a great scene.
It's true.
I agree.
It's true.
It's great.
But I love red as a prominent color in this film. It's all good. So I love how red is kind of a reoccurring color in this film. We get the entire throne room red with all the guards in red, and then we get to the mining planet of Crate, which is the backstory in Claudia Gray's Leia, Princess of Alderaan book about when Leia first encountered the planet as a princess before she was involved with the rebellion. It's really cool. But anyway, just that, and then having the red dirt with the salt over top of it, really cool.
I loved it too. I was texting Pace as I was rewatching, and just the visual of Crate, like, whoever chose red chose very well. Whoever was doing that sort of design portion, particularly on Crate, kudos, like, hats off to you, because it looks so incredible. Like, it's the right color red. It's this deep red that's evocative of, like, blood, but also, like, just stands out in such stark contrast to the white that is over everything. And then to watch, like, the speeders, once, you know, Finn figures out how to actually use his and use the ski thing, the mono ski, but yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
So when we had that technical difficulty, it's because I got really excited about this topic, because I took a note I took a note about this particular scene, and I said, I'm happy he was dead because he looked half dead anyway. That's my one comment. Then my second comment was
about
it's
Snoke.
a drag. Yes,
Nice.
it's a drag show. Those leather outfits were fire. And then I was like,
I
they
love
kind of
it.
look like chessmen. So I need to point out that I didn't have all of that. Oh my God, they did so good. I was just like, dang, you better work the whole time. So
I
good
love
job.
Though. It's true. It's true. Every time I see them, I'm like,
They had capes. Like
they got
blades.
capes. They're flinging them all over the place.
Right?
They got
Capes
the
are
fancy
so
little
popular in the Star
tunics
Wars
with the
universe.
belts.
They
Mhm.
really are
And
amazing.
I think Lando was the one who started that trend.
I think he definitely popularized it, but if you remember to the prequel trilogy, who was wearing capes was, what's his face? Oh, a certain senator was wearing capes in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, it's true. Bail Organa.
Well, I'm happy that Lando didn't get the cape vibes and he didn't start that as a trendsetter because I'm mad at Lando. Still mad at Lando for being a crook. I didn't appreciate it. So,
I was trying to give him a redeeming quality for you.
no.
Yep.
F Lando and his cape.
Okay.
He lost me from the very beginning.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I also love the fight with... I love when Luke shows up on Crate. Right? And, like, Kylo Ren is like, throw it all at him! And they just, like, fire for 5 minutes.
Listen.
And then Luke steps and they stop, and Luke steps forward, and it's just like,
Yep.
like, go on, brush your shoulder off, Luke.
Just so you know, that is the scene that had me. That is the scene that made me go.
That's what you were yelling about last night. Okay.
Well, the
Right.
yell was when they showed him floating on top of the rock. That is when I yelled to Luke, because that's when I found out that he was just playing the game, player.
Yeah. I definitely missed and they have hints about it, right? Like the fact that red doesn't come up when he steps or slides, and it comes up for everybody else on the white.
I didn't
I
notice that.
totally missed it the first time. It's
Right.
not been until like rewatching that I caught that.
But Ryan Johnson did such a great job of like weaving this throughout the movie, like slowly introducing that Kylo and Rey can appear to each other from across great differences, and that they can have real world effects on each other from across world differences when Rey gets wet from the rain in that one scene. And then also when Kylo says to Rey's like, you can't be doing this because the effort alone would kill you, so how is this happening? And then we find out that Luke is able to with great effort, and it does in fact kill him. Spoilers.
or at
So
least
I'm happy
return him to the Force.
I'm happy I figured out what was going on, because in my comments I kept getting confused about their like talking to each other in the Force. So I called it a fever dream at first because I was confused. I was
Right,
like,
it kind of
fever
is.
dream?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'd seen this like 3 times now. Oh, well, 2 times this time. And I was confused, like, am I missing something? But when you get to the end, you find out that...
Yeah. Well, and it's Luke
Yeah.
is doing like a whole Force projection, because it's not just Kylo Ren, right? Like he talks to Leia, everybody sees him,
Yeah.
all of that. So it's a monumental effort on Luke's part.
Yeah. And fighting while projecting is like just and so that's one of the things that a lot of the fake fans were complaining about, is like, we never get to see Luke's badassery. It's like, we get to see his badassery.
Like,
That
how
is an
is that
incredible
not it?
thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
an awesome lightsaber fight. It's through this great feat of the Force. Like, oh my god, come on. Anyway.
Yeah. Agreed. Also, I love at the very end the like kid sweeping up, that like he grabs the broom with the Force, and then he's like sweeping up, and then but he has the rebellion ring that Rose gave him.
And it's right after the kids are telling each other the legend of Luke Skywalker and of Leia and of the rebellion. And so it's like this, another thing, we'll get to this in the deep dive, is this recurring theme of what does it mean to be a legend, and Luke thinking a bad thing, and yet. And then kind of similar to that is, I love that scene as well, because it shows that the Force isn't tied to the Jedi. The Force is beyond Jedi and Sith. And that was the point that Luke, I think rightly so, was making throughout this movie. But he was coming to bad conclusions about what that means for him. Anyway.
I just wanted, before we jump past the rocks, because that was big for me when she used the Force to move the rocks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was, I just didn't want to forget that part because
Oh, God.
that was huge.
I'm going to talk about that in the deep dive, too.
Because it gave me Jean Grey vibes, and Jean Grey is my favorite superhero in the entire world. And if someone asks me what superhero you are, I'm Jean Grey, aka the Phoenix. And
Sounds like
I loved it.
Sounds like maybe Nerds at Church might have another superhero to talk about on there. So if that's not already in the works.
X-Men in a larger sense is in the works.
Oh my god. X-Men was my first superhero shebang to fall in love with. And my mom loved X-Men. And I remember when she took me to see the first one. And me and her were just staring at it because I was like, this is amazing. And she was like really excited because they did the comic books justice. And I think that was a big deal. So you can find me at the top.
I really liked it.
Oh, I guess I can't say what Starbucks I work at, but you can find me at the Starbucks if you want to ask questions about superheroes. I'm here. Yeah. I'm a superhero consultant if you have questions.
Eek-awk.
Noted. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was great, and the like recognition of the ice foxes.
Yeah.
Because they're adorable, and I love them also. And I wonder if they have the Force. Like, was that one specifically like hanging out because of like Force knowledge? And
probably, I believe that we've seen that happen.
It was
with
looking
the
back
wolves
to
on
make sure
Lothal,
that they're
the
coming.
Wolves.
Yeah.
I haven't finished reading the book yet, but there are two insights. I'm almost finished, but two insights that I found as I was reading the book version that I thought were interesting to bring up is that Rey's linkage to Kylo's mind through Snoke is what allowed her in like a Matrix download style to receive all his years of training and unlock doors to her hidden Force abilities. So she always had the ability within her, but the reason she's so well trained, being just a full-on beginner, is because she was able to pull Kylo's training into herself, and
he did it to himself.
Is cool.
It's the like you equip the person who can actually challenge you.
Yep. And then
Pace, I'm really happy that you brought up Matrix because I had that in my notes. I had it in my notes.
Ooh.
It gave me lots of parts of this movie were kind of Matrixy, like when Rey was standing in that that area. I don't know how to explain it, but there was like a whole bunch of her standing in a line.
Yeah.
And like the mirror thing, that was really like blue pill, red pill for me. I was just like, what's going on right now? But I'm so happy you said that because I felt like that multiple times. Like, this is giving Matrix right now. So thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, and then of course when she asks about her parents and it shows herself, just love that commentary. It's like she's her own person. It doesn't matter where she came from. Anyway, Luke. Then the movie does not include the scene of Luke opening himself back up to the Force. We just find out like as a twist that he's opened himself back up to the Force and he can project from millions of light years away and do this. But in the book actually has this specific scene of him doing that, and so Rey is still on the island. It's when she is mind melding with Kylo or whatever, and he opens himself back up to the.
It's their video call.
Yeah, it's their video call. he opens himself up to the Force just because Rey's arguments are finally starting to work on him, and he's finally starting to be like, okay, well, maybe I should at least see what's going on out there. He opens himself back up to the Force, and immediately he encounters Leia, and that's also what helps her to wake up from her coma, is that they met in the Force and called for each other and to help each other.
Yeah, and we only catch the, like, Luke, Leia of that whole scene. Like,
right.
Yeah.
But anyway, he decides that now is the time to go back and join the fight. So he runs back down the hill. He's going to tell Rey he's going to come back with her. And then he sees her communing with Kylo. And this is where it picks up in the movie. And he is immediately scared that the dark side is going to win all over again. And he lashes out. And that's when Rey asks him one last time, will you join me? And he's too scared because of what he just saw in that moment. And then Yoda is who helps him see the folly of his ways, and as in the movie, ultimately decides to join the fight. So it's kind of a team effort between Rey, R2-D2, Leia, and Yoda to finally get him to get over his shit.
Yeah.
I mean, guilt's a strong drug. A lot of us have significant guilt and stuff that we carry, and we make poor decisions out of that. But
I mean, I think it was more shame. Like,
yes,
I think
that
guilt
too
is more frequently a driver of repair.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you are guilty of something, that leads to repair and recognition of that guilt. But shame is a thing that we turn inwards, and that does not lead anywhere good, basically, ever. Unless, like, it might for the big ones, like the super bads. That might be the only thing that can redeem them. But, yeah.
I guess we can get into our deep dive then.
Yeah. Kids. Kids are important. I love that the kids have a role in this, and they're like and they're not the fancy, like, I love Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I can't wait to talk about it for our YouTube, but the kids here are the kids who are probably enslaved, certainly doing child labor, and yet they and like are oppressed, plus their kids, which is an extra class of oppression because of how we don't treat children with any rights, basically, except, you know, these days the right to be born against anybody's will before they're even alive, and then they become this part of the resistance. And so thinking about, like, those different ways of, like, how instrumental those kids were in that moment. Like, if they hadn't done that, who knows what would have happened to Finn and Rose. And admittedly, Finn and Rose's mission ended up being all for naught, but just a way to, like, kill more of the rebellion, but of the resistance. But I think there's this really important space of, like, thinking about kids more deeply, because it's no longer child soldiers in the same way that it was with the original Jedi. We're not stealing them from birth, but we're still oppressing kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now it's just the First Order that steals kids from birth, apparently.
Yeah.
But I love the kids and the rebellion ring or pendant or whatever it is, and how that ties in with what General Hodo says about resistance being a spark that will ignite a rebellion through the galaxy. So the resistance has to survive, which is why Poe's heroics aren't what's needed right now. Survival is what's needed. And he does not seem to understand that.
Yeah, he does not at all. Yeah, and I think that brings in the, like, I'm gonna skip, but to the nature of failure, right? Where Poe did the wrong thing because he lost all those bombers to be a hero instead of trying to survive. And eventually he gets to the point where he learned it, but he learned it way too late, because that doesn't teach it to him. And it doesn't teach it to him when he, like, sends Finn and Rose on this, like, doomed mission. It's not until he's literally, like, the doomed mission is backfiring, and the transports are getting killed, that he's like finally starts to think about what is the needed thing. And we see that come into play on Crate, when he's like, no, Luke is out there for a reason, and it's not for us to go help him.
Yeah.
What do we need to be doing in this moment? And that's how he figures out, like, there is a path out. The ice foxes know it, and that sort of thing. But it's also, like, that's also part of it when Rose crashes into Finn so that he doesn't basically do the suicide mission, right? So that he doesn't go run himself into the thing that's going to blast down the door. And Finn's like, why did you do that? Because Finn is still in hero mode. Yep. And basically always is, because he's Finn.
I was going to say, he's always thinking about what he can do.
Yeah. And then Rose is like, I saved you, dummy. That's how we're going to win. Not fighting what we hate, saving what we love. And that is where they are at in this point in the rebellion, in the resistance.
Cue me bawling my eyes out.
Right?
Yeah, right? Oh my god, that scene. So beautiful.
Ooh, yeah. It's so good.
I made it the whole time without crying until that part. I'm like, are you serious?
When I watched this movie the first time in theaters, I cried from the moment Princess Leia uses General Leia uses the Force to get back into the ship until the end of the movie. It was just crying nonstop for me. Maybe a few intermissions of crying, but like that was just so. Anyway.
Yeah, I also the other piece of failure that I wanted to say, and then I know you have something face, is like is Yoda's comment that the greatest teacher failure is, and we are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters. And to think about like what does it look like to be in that role, and to think about it as adults in our middle ages, which is weird, to be looking at the generations coming up after us and the kids that we are loving and caring for in various ways, and then we are what they will grow beyond, and how do we help them grow beyond us and do better than us and smash. I mean,
I'm a teacher. That's me. Like to a like that's what I love about teaching, is like helping equip kids and get. I'm working with kids right now specifically, but love to teach all ages, and it's just like exactly that. The joy. It's a similar feeling to a compersion feeling that we can talk about that's the opposite of jealousy. Like it's the opposite of jealousy when I see someone who is one of my students go far in life, because I feel like it's a mixture of pride and love and all those things. So, but that, with Yoda too, though, the Jedi Order has failed. Luke says that he wants to be the last Jedi so that the religion can die with him. And I want to be clear, I don't think he's wrong on this at all. The Jedi were fucked. Really fucked up. Stealing children from their parents. I don't want to reveal too much about the prequel series, but like the whole prequel series is basically... I don't know if
Brooke is ever going to watch the prequel series.
But it's like a whole meditation on how awful the Jedi are over 3 films and how much they failed. Yeah. So Luke's not wrong here. But one of the themes of this film is how do you move past failure instead of just remaining stuck in it? I think that's what you're talking about with the shame, is like getting stuck and turned inward, as opposed to we fucked up, we made a mistake. How do we make amends? How do we work towards justice? How do we work restoratively to fix what we've done? And everybody in this movie is on that journey except for Kylo. He's the one that stays fucked up in that. He doesn't quite figure that out.
I don't think he's gotten... I think his shame is buried so deep.
Yeah.
That he can't access it yet. And I think... Which doesn't mean that he won't ever. But I do think he is not yet to a place where he can access, where he can even like recognize that there is any shame, let alone actually feel the shame, let alone move through the shame into, okay, this is guilt because I did something wrong, not shame for who I am. And I think part of how he resists that and like just buries it is through Vader, and through then like shifting all of his allegiance to Vader and this like idea of who Vader was, which is not who Vader was at the beginning or at the end of his life. It was who he was through like the most dangerous times of his life. But so then like the smashing of Vader's helmet, which I don't think I realized the first couple times I watched this, but when Kylo smashes Vader's
helmet, it's his helmet,
yeah.
right?
I thought it was Vader's helmet. I thought he smashed up Vader's helmet. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it looked like Vader's helmet this time.
Okay.
But I think there's something there, right? Like there's this shift that is starting to happen with Kylo, where like Rey is planting the seeds to say, you are not doomed to this. And like taking on Snoke is step one in resisting. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of gets to this nature of legends and also nature of hope, which I think are kind of tied hand in hand. And so Luke and Kylo are both having to wrestle with this concept of being a legend, or what heroes that they come from. And so Kylo wrestling with his uncle being Luke, and his grandfather being Vader, and his mom being freaking General Organa, and how like,
and his dad being Han Solo,
right? Famous smuggler and rebellion hero, as Finn says, and Rey says. But just like how the legends kind of become larger than the person, and the person is still a person, still subject to make mistakes and failures and stuff like that, and how that really, and so to give one another freedom, not freedom to like harm others, but like making mistakes is inevitable. How do we deal with the mistakes instead of trying to hold people up to impossible standards, and how do we work restoratively and things like that?
Yeah. And I think Finn and Rose, like their first encounter is a perfect example of that, right? That like Finn has become a legend, and he's never been the kind of character that should be a legend. He's not. He's human. Yeah. He is afraid. He cares more about Rey than like anybody else. And in a certain extent, his care for Rey and his desire to protect Rey, which she doesn't ask for and is a little bit condescending,
right,
is I think a cover in some respects for his self-preservation and his wanting to protect himself. Because if he's working on being in a safe place so that Rey can come back, that means that he's safe.
Yep.
But, yeah. Brooke, you have a look on your face like you're really worried.
No, I'm listening to all of this. You're breaking it down for me. I didn't even think about half this stuff this way.
It is kind of our job. Except that this is unpaid. But, yeah.
Right. But also how, like, I think we say this in progressive circles a lot, is like, your heroes are going to let you down. Like, don't build up somebody to these impossible standards, because they're human, they're going to fuck up. And if you put too much, if you do that, then it can harm your ability to see yourself as a human, because you can't then live up to this impossible standard. And then you're not going to work for justice or do any things in small ways, which you can absolutely do right now. You don't have to be a legend or a hero to do that. And that's kind of also part of what this movie is talking about, is like, Rose's sister wasn't a hero, yet she was the one who was able to bring down the Death Knot. She was a nobody in the scheme of the rebellion. She didn't have a rank or title. The heroes are the ones who keep fucking up here, except for Leia and Holdo, who are perfect from beginning to end. But they're the only true heroes, but everybody else fucks up.
But that's part of, like, shout out to Nerds at Church season 5, which is all about heroes. But part of it is that the way we treat heroes and the way we interpret what it means to be a hero. And this does a great example of saying, like, no, heroes are not the ones that are always right and perfect and never die. I mean, they do never die in this, but the reality of how we treat heroes is that they should be perfect. They should never mess up.
Yeah.
And they should sacrifice their lives for everybody else. Yep. That is 100% what Finn tries to do in the public sphere, right? Like, he wants to destroy the electric battering ram thingy because then he's going out as a hero as opposed to surviving till the next day. Because surviving is in many ways a scarier thing. But also when we say you're a hero, we are putting someone else in the position, we are putting them on the pedestal, we are making it harder for them to be human, and we are making their lives more expendable. We did this from the start of the pandemic. The essential workers were heroes, and therefore their lives are expendable. Therefore they can die because we need our coffee, and we need our health care, and we need all the things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that ties into with nature of hope, I think, which is that survival of surviving kind of out of spite too, I think, is something we say to a lot of we say
survivors.
As a way to to survivors. Exactly. It's okay to survive out of spite if you have no other reason to survive. And so for Rey, the Jedi must survive so they can be a hope for others. Whereas Luke thinks they need to die because he doesn't see anything redemptive about them. The Resistance must survive so that can be a hope for others. And then I love Hodo's quote, which she says is actually a Leia quote, but she repeats is, hope is like the sun. If you only believe it when you see it, you'll never make it through the night. Try to avoid the light, dark, problematic imagery of that, but just that nature of like, you can't always access the hope, but still just try to survive until the point you can access that hope again.
Yeah. And there's I talk about this with ridiculous frequency, but Barbara Brown Taylor's book Learning to Walk in the Dark is fantastic and really digs into this in a spiritual and theological sense of having what she calls a lunar spirituality instead of a full solar spirituality. Full solar spirituality is, it is bright all the time, and if something bad happens, you've got like a week or two, and then you need to be back in the bright side, and we can't handle depression or long-term grief or any of that. But a lunar spirituality is one that waxes and wanes with the moon. So sometimes it's bright as the full moon, and sometimes you can't even see it, but the stars are there. And like, she just does a fantastic job in her book. It is my favorite book of hers.
That sounds beautiful.
Highly recommend. I think you would like it, Brooke.
Yeah, she has a very poetic style of writing too. Very beautiful.
And she addresses the like light dark binary that perpetuates racism in the book too. Yeah.
Kind of with the Jedi, we have Force denominations. I do like how it's kind of depicted, especially in the expanded media, the books and stuff now, more and more so, but that the Jedi and the Sith are just two sects of a Force religion or two denominations, and that they neither own the dark side of the Force or the light side of the Force or the Force as a whole, but there are many understandings of the Force in the universe. And so just kind of similar to denominations or even global religions, that no one can own the divine, but each can offer unique insights into the character of the divine or humanity or the universe.
Yeah. I like that. I was caught off guard when I was watching this, and Holdo's like watching the transports escape and says, "Godspeed, rebels." And I was like, but there is no God in Star Wars. It's the Force. It's like...
I had to Google it.
Pace strongly disagrees with this.
I don't Google.
What did you find?
I just let Pace tell me.
What did you find in your Googling, Brooke?
So I was just like, did I miss a God? Did I miss them talking about a God?
Thank you.
And so I had to Google it, because saying Godspeed, now, if you're going to come up with a religion that is made up with energy, you can't say nothing about God, because
and especially when you have the cliche line that is, may the force be with you.
Exactly. and we say, "May God be with you." Come on now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Shout out to Hodo because that lavender hair was popping, but
Right.
I was confused about the God comment, which led me to a
Sure.
Google search.
Yeah. I have found, like, you haven't seen the Clone Wars series with this, but Emily has, unfortunately or fortunately, had to sit through most of it. I hate it. That's why I say unfortunately.
Episodes
but
I had a good guide, which is you, and so
Yeah.
I had some good episodes to watch.
but there are various alien planets or alien creatures that have cultural gods that they talk about and stuff like that, including Hera's family has like a little shrine to a god and stuff like that. And then we also have the Force deities of the father, daughter, and son, Bendu, Ashla, and Bogan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I didn't think of them as deities, so I think that's part of it for me. Is like I don't think of Bendu, Ashla, and Bogan as deities. I just thought they were, I don't know what I thought they were, but it did not register for me as like we talked about them as the Trinity.
Yeah.
But also it did not register.
Yeah, I didn't agree upon that.
Yeah.
I was like,
and then the Force itself as a pantheistic notion. Some religions worship the Force as God itself, which is a slightly different usage of the Force than just calling it an energy that connects and binds all things or something like that. So a little bit of gods in there. There's a whole Wikipedia page I can link, not Wikipedia, a Star Wars fandom Wikipedia page about the deities, various deities of Star Wars that I can link in the show notes.
Shout out to Chewie, best Wiki ever.
Right. But kind of while we're talking about Force though, one of my absolute favorite scenes in the movie, it's similar to what you were saying, Brooke, is Rey on the stone and the stones start floating and all that stuff. But when she closes her eyes and reaches out and we see these scenes of like life happening and growth, and then we see a skeleton of death and stuff. And as these scenes are flashing, Luke and Leia have this conversation. She says, "I can see the island, life, death, and decay.
Rey and Luke have the conversation.
Who did I say? I thought I said Rey and Luke.
Luke and Leia.
Oh.
You said Leia and Luke,
Rey,
but it's Rey.
Yeah, it is Rey. I
Leia.
swear. Yeah, sorry. Rey, as Rey is on the rock.
You said Rey was on the rock, and then you just said Luke and Leia were talking. It was great.
But yeah, so Rey says the island, life, death, and decay that feeds new life, warmth, cold, peace, violence, and then Luke asks, and between it all, and she says balance and energy of Force. And just love that description of the Force and just the cycles of life in this universe that we see throughout. It makes me strongly think of Barbara Brown Taylor's book Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. Talks about God as this kind of cycle of life and death, and it's just gorgeous whenever I see this kind of language. So
nice. Yeah. In a less poetic sense, war. What is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Say it again.
I'm crying. I was here for it.
But I think that I don't remember his name. The guy that they get to do code breaking.
DJ, I think.
Yeah, DJ.
You talking about the guy they met in the jail cell?
Yeah.
Yeah, Benicio del Toro's character.
I just want you to know I put in the notes, I think I put Johnny Knoxville ? Asshole. So
it's Benicio del Toro, but he does look like Johnny Knoxville. I agree.
I was like, is that Johnny Knoxville? Mm-hmm. What? No one told me Johnny Knoxville was in a Star Wars movie? But then, like, I Googled it, and I was like, that's not Johnny Knoxville. Yeah. But it looks like him. Mm-hmm. And his character is right on character.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. But I did think, like, his pointing out to Finn especially, but to both Finn and Rose, that like war is the most profitable business, and the people who are selling to the First Order are selling also to the rebellion, and that's I mean, that feels so very real right now, because the United States is continuing to fund Israel and Ukraine and all sorts of wars, and for the most part in the Middle East we've funded both sides as best we could because it gives us more money, right? Like, Boeing, despite losing doors on all its planes, is still one of the huge defense contractors for the United States, and so like is providing the stuff that Israel is using in their genocide. And we just keep pushing into that, and to the extent that the military is the largest budget item, not even the veterans, right? Like, veterans are a separate budget item, but the military itself is the largest budget item in the United States by far, and is larger than the next 10 countries combined. Like, we spend ridiculous amounts on military, and so many defense companies make so much money off of our spending money, and then we don't have anything to do with this stuff, and so we start giving it and selling it to local police departments and militarizing police departments, which is not good for anybody.
Or channeling it to other countries. And selling it to other countries.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's always that the sham and the wool over our eyes of those of us living in the USA, of course, is that we always hear these things about we can't raise the budget, we can't increase the budget line, we need to cut social services or stuff like that. But there's never any discussion of touching the biggest money line item in the budget.
Yeah.
That's always
Not
just
even,
granted.
like, yeah, Democrats hardly even talk about it, too. Only a couple Democrats will talk about it.
Exactly. And it's like war is budgeted on the backs of social services and every other budgeted item. And infrastructure, all of that stuff is balanced on the back. Like, war is balanced on the back of all of those things.
Yeah.
Yay, capitalism and military industrial complex, which also, it seems to be a very Star Wars thing, too. Star Wars is not a futuristic universe I want to live in. I want to say. I don't want to live there.
Well, and we've talked about it some, but like the trilogies of Star Wars, when they came out, were reflecting what was happening in contemporary culture. The First Order, like when we were watching The Force Awakens, Brooke, and they were doing the big speech to all the military, and Brooke noticed, because it would take a lot of intentional ignorance to not the similarities to Nazis.
Bad.
Right? And then we paused the movie because Brooke missed, and I like rewound around 10 seconds so that Brooke could see then the salute. So it was before the everybody salutes that Brooke was like, this is giving real Nazi vibes. And I was like, yes it does. But
Bad news bears.
But that's also when we were seeing a rise in white supremacy and neo-Nazism and all of that, with the rise of Trump, with the blowback from having a black president, all of that stuff. Yeah. So like this trilogy is very much doing what it should be doing, which is reflecting back to us where we're at in this country in particular.
Just as the prequel trilogy did George Bush politics, as we've talked about, era Iraq war politics, and the original trilogy did Cold War era politics and commented on them. So all of the trilogy has always been political. People who don't see that are willfully ignorant of it.
Yeah. Yep. I did think that this movie dealt with misogyny and sexism in a different way than others. So Brooke at the beginning talked about Leia having a chain around her neck, and like the only somewhat redeeming part of that is that she uses that chain then to kill Jabba the Hutt, which is, my guess is that was an afterthought But then, like, to have Kylo Ren's version of, like, incel flirting, right? Of, like, you're nothing, but not to me. Join me, and we can be something together, right? But the ways that, like, men used to insult women to flirt. Like, I had somebody do this to me when I was in, like, high school or something. They were like, I wasn't just, like, automatically going with them, and so they were like, well, you're blah blah blah, and then, like, as if I would then want to prove that I'm not by, I don't know, it was like,
no, I get
weird.
What you're saying.
Yeah, but Kylo definitely gives off the incel vibes. And even Poe, who is, like, this beloved character, this one that we like, the sexism coming out to play when he has to answer to women as superiors, particularly women who are not Leia. Like, he just literally mutes Leia when they're in the middle of the thing, and she's like, okay, come back. And he's like, no, but we want to take down the Dreadnought. And it's like, yes, and in taking down the Dreadnought, you lost every single bomber that we had, plus a bunch of X-Wings, plus all of the humans that were, all of the, like, people that were connected to that. And then when Admiral Holdo takes charge, and he's like, no. And, like, I get the, like, we're all in chaos, and we need reassurance, so we need a plan, and we don't know that there's a plan. And so I get the, like, desire for a plan, and I think if he hadn't have done what he did, if he hadn't escalated, I think she was going to tell him at least, there is a plan. Yeah. I have a plan. I know what I'm doing. But then he went off, and so she was like, nope, you're gone. You have not behaved in a way that has earned or deserves the knowledge of the plan. And then he just is, you know.
So this goes back to my original statement about Princess Leia, is that you don't gotta get ready if you stay ready, because she could have just used the Force on him, okay? Poe could have just fell right out the air into a big old hole, but she didn't do that to him. She cut him where it hurt, and that's what he. And don't forget, and I also want to add, don't forget Finn, because he was getting on my nerves too. Mm-hmm. With him just
especially the first movie.
Yeah. I just was like, if you don't sit down somewhere, first of all, if someone doesn't need your help, they don't need your help. Mm-hmm. And he was just like, no, I want to help you. I want to help you. Didn't she almost just beat your ass like 2 seconds ago? Leave her alone.
Yeah.
That's
and
how I
certainly
felt
do
like.
not hamper her running by grabbing her hand multiple times.
Right, like, you're getting us both killed. Big F, remember? They call him Big F. I put that in my notes. Okay. And I was like, not they call him Big F. Come on now.
Yeah.
But Finn was definitely getting on my nerves too.
Oh yeah. Finn more so. I mean, Finn has that in both movies in different ways. Yeah. Speaking of, though, that brings us to our final big deep dive thing.
Yep. Which is that growth isn't a bad thing. It's a necessary thing. And so a lot of the negative feedback of this film was upset over Luke's characterization and him no longer being this hero. But instead, we get to see a realistic Luke grow throughout this film. Rey grows throughout this film. Finn grows throughout this film. Poe grows throughout this film. Kylo is starting to grow throughout this film.
You think so?
And we get starting very, very baby steps.
I was gonna say, I feel like he's mad. The way he lit up Luke.
But I think for Kylo, he gets to the point that, I mean, Luke aside, right? He has legit trauma from his experience with Luke. But with Rey and the place that they get to with realizing that Snoke is not what is best for the galaxy. Granted, Kylo Ren thinks he is what's best for the galaxy, and Rey knows that's not true, right? But he gets to the point where he's like, this you versus me is not the thing. that
And
I
how
thought
he
it was
can't
supposed
even-
to be.
Yeah, and how he was able to kill his dad, but wasn't able to kill his mom and stuff like. There's probably some sexism in there and stuff too, but just this like nature of like he's changed from who he was in the last movie, and we see that happen again in the next movie. But then we get Leia, Holdo, and Rose just being awesome from the get go. So I want to shout them out too. Like you don't. Some people can just be awesome from the get go. Not everybody's. Lots of people have to grow, but.
And I would like to point out that the droids are not on this list either. And we need to name that BB-8 and R2 are fantastic.
Yeah, and that list is all humans, so not just the droids. We also need to name Chewbacca is amazing from the get-go.
Chewbacca, after
he
just
was
losing
whipping.
his pet,
Yeah.
is like, okay, we got a mission to do, we're gonna go. And then he discovers a whole bunch of pets who convert him to vegetarianism.
Yeah,
Like,
but
that is some growth.
and
Or at
also
least
when
temporary
he like
vegetarianism.
throws open the door to Luke's thing and is like, I'm not having this shit. Like, get out of your shit, Luke. Love that scene.
Yep.
Oh, I got some Chewbacca growth. I feel like he I feel like he really whipped the shit out the Millennium Falcon at that, you know, when they were trying to get out that, you know, little area. I don't think I've seen Chewie drive like that the whole time.
Yeah, because Chewie usually was not the main.
Chewie had to like whip it by himself and save folks. He did a good job.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, this is a like, because Han was like more calling the shots. I feel like Han was one of those dogs that like, one of those pets that like, no matter how much you try and train them, they're gonna run when they see a squirrel kind of thing.
Squirrel.
And so like had to like be brought back around to come help with the rebellion, right? Like was a surprise addition to help Luke destroy this the Death Star, versus Chewie now hanging out with Rey, has a new pet. Rey is much more ready. Like, she started out and she was like, this is not my thing. I'm just waiting for my parents, who are never coming. But she's like, it's not my thing. And so the space of, like, her growth was mostly in the first movie, I think, of, like, she did grow from this whole big politics and rebellion and First Order is none of my business, I don't care, to... no, I am deeply invested in this because there is a greater thing at work. And so she readily comes in with the Millennium Falcon to help when they're on crate and when the like speeder thingies are going for the cannon and all of that stuff. Like that, I do think there is growth in that part, as well as growth in her ability to use the Force and stuff. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Guess we can get into our Force lore then. So, from this movie, we learn that the Jedi religion started on Ahch-To, which has a planet with strong dark and light side energy. And so a temple was built to honor this and also hold the earliest known copies of Jedi texts. And presumably the knowledge of this planet was lost by the time of the Empire, or more likely purposefully hidden by Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yobi doo. But we also learn that the Jedi Order began over 10,000 generations, which is probably about 30,000 years before Phantom Menace started. So the Jedi religion has been around a very long time.
Huh, weird. Interesting. Yeah. Also, according to Rey, the Force is a power the Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float. And I love that description. It's before she learns about the Force, right? But I love that that's the cultural understanding of the Force.
Right.
Fantastic. And then apparently there are gods in Star Wars, which I mentioned already, of Holdo watching the transport escape and saying Godspeed Rebels. But I still will maintain that it is out of place in this context, because
Agreed.
at no point in the entire like movies
Series.
so far.
Yeah.
Has God been invoked in anything, and they've had enough like emergency, we're all gonna die, that if God was like a thing for them, God should have.
They would have said, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Someone's been like, no one said anything like that. That's what was confusing for me too. I agree.
Yeah. Also, you can do video visits now. Yay, Force Zoom.
Right.
Rey and Kylo do it. And Snoke says that he's the one that did it, but then Rey and Kylo do it at the end too. And then you said something about like it was when Kylo was trying to read Rey's mind. So, yeah.
Yeah, Snoke seems to have placed the link there when that was happening, and then Kylo and Rey seem to have been able to learn how to open and close that link at will by the end of the film.
Interesting. Yeah.
But also that's just a cool force power, I guess.
Right? Yeah. Totally.
Force Ghost Yoda can wield lightning, and it doesn't seem to be force lightning like we see in the original film or the Return of the Jedi that Palpatine uses. It seems to be just wielding elemental lightning, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. When I was rewatching it today in Spanish, because Pentecost, I noticed that and I was like, oh hey, we didn't mention this, and I went to go type it in, and Pace had written it down in the notes, and I was like, oh perfect, yes, yeah. But I think that's particularly interesting because Force lightning was a thing that the dark side users were known for, not the light side. And so for Yoda to be like, let's just throw on some lightning and take care of that Jedi temple right now, it's like, okay, yeah, we're deconstructing the false binary between light and dark sides.
Yeah.
It's almost like a non-binary podcast.
Right. And just the idea of Jedis being a dying religion, or the Jedi being a dying religion, should it die for good so that other Force religions may flourish? Or should it be reformed? This is something that the church is talking about right now. The church, as in Catholic Church, Universal Church, all churches are kind of working through these questions, but the ELCA, the church that Emily and I are most familiar with, is doing this with like a renewing campaign and stuff like that to figure out what to do. How can we deal with the harm of the past? Should the harm mean something new, or can we reform what exists?
Yeah,
that's really something to think about. Because at first, I'm not even gonna lie, when you said that the Jedi were stealing people's kids, I'm like, I don't think we should continue to do that. But at the same time, what happens if, they can change things, maybe make amends and try to reconcile some things that they did wrong? It could be better.
Yeah, and part of it I think depends on like what Jedis are willing to do, right? Luke was not willing to do the repair needed, and he preferred to just let it die with him. And there's a lot more that went into it. But for Rey, I don't know. We'll have to see in the next movie what happens.
Right?
No spoilers for Brooke.
Spoiler what?
I'm not spoiling anything for you. I'm going to watch this next movie with you, because then we can discuss it.
Talk about it.
Cool. Also, I'm in the Force lore realm, the ice foxes, or as Brooke looked up, because I'm not a person that looks things up, the Volptices. Oh, that was Spanish pronunciation, sorry. The Volptices.
Thank you.
Are they Force animals? Right? They all escape but one. And one sticks back and seems to be communicating with Poe. Sticks around, because all the Force people... is it because it's aware of all the Force people? Because Leia's there too and stuff. and it wanted to help show the way, but like it seems more connected to Poe than anybody else. Does Poe have the Force? Which I know, everybody has the Force within them and is connected to the Force because it's an energy that connects all living things.
Well,
And
even
also,
if we say it in church language, does for someone to be strong in the Spirit or weak in the Spirit doesn't mean that the Holy Spirit can't use them for something, whether they're strong or weak in the Spirit.
I know.
Since today is Pentecost.
It's true. This is the day of all days to be talking about that.
I honestly don't think that they have the Force. I think that the Force used them to help them. That's what I think.
The Voltices.
Yeah, because, like, in my head now from this conversation, I see the Force as, like, the Holy Ghost. And I'm just like, so the Holy Ghost sent the box babies to help them out. So, that's what I think.
Yeah. Kay and I talked about this a bunch for our, I think it was our Pentecost episode, our first season. We talked about this in Nerds at Church of the connection between the Force and the Holy Spirit.
I honestly think that this is all based off of, like, Christian. Just in a weird way.
It's almost like the origins of this are, in fact, yeah. It's like the person who created it was maybe Christian.
Maybe. I'll call George and ask him later if he's Christian.
Mostly he's
like...
like...
into the phone, but...
he may or may not. Mostly he is like Christian, but wants to like do Buddhism with the Jedis, but doesn't actually care to learn anything about Buddhism.
Yeah, I don't.
So it's
I don't honestly know if he's Christian or not, but definitely, if you're like raised in a Christian culture, by and large, society, USA tends to be very Christian in its politics and popular religion and stuff.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to use this in my class. All this education.
I think you should just use podcast episodes for all of your things and be like, well, as mentioned on Nerds at Church, as mentioned on Horror Nerds at Church, as blah, 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 blah. I'm just saying. It seems like that's perfect for that class.
I got you.
Any other thoughts before we jump into our readings? Brooke?
No.
Okay. So,
no questions.
Now we are rating the film out of 10 Kyber crystals, which are the things that power lightsabers.
Which we see in this movie as Luke/Anakin's old lightsaber gets broken in half, and we see the Kyber crystal split.
And then Rey is like holding it, and you see the Kyber crystal. So, do you want to go first, Brooke, or do you want someone else to? And by someone else,
I'll go
we mean
first.
Okay.
I'll go first. Okay, so I am a movie extraordinaire. So I can't rate it from all of the space and sci-fi movies, because...
No, you're just rating this movie in its own realm.
In its own realm?
Like, if you're just rating the movie itself. It doesn't have to compare to any other ones.
I mean, yeah, you can rate however you want. You can compare it to other ways too, but
thank you.
Up to you.
Because that's
but
the
you
only
don't
way
have
I can
to
do it.
Okay. Well, you said you couldn't, so I was trying to...
No, I'm saying the only way I can do it is to use things alike it, but there's... So, I'm not going to put it to Guardians of the Galaxy, because that doesn't make sense. But, in its own little thing, one thing I love is a good story. And this here got a good story, this one. Because find out that Leia and Han Solo were his parents, that was the tea. And I was really excited about that. So, I'm going to rate this Star Wars movie from all the other ones. Because that's what I have to do.
All the other ones are terrible.
And I give this one an 8.5. I give it a half because Princess Leia didn't die, I want to say, in the movie. They kept hope alive, even though it's probably going to be hard. They kept the Force alive and didn't kill off the only character I actually knew before this.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that she was strong and she kicked ass and she had the force and that she was an OG. And I really like this one. This one was my favorite one out of all the ones that we watched, because despite all the incels, yeah, I'm calling you out. The fact that Luke, you know, had, you know, he went through stuff, I really dug the fact that they showed his struggle, they showed what he was going through, you know. You know how sometimes they'll send a character away and they'll never tell you what they went through to see where they, you know how they got where they are now. And we got to see his journey, and that was honestly my favorite part, because a lot of the times when someone, you know, goes through something, movies sometimes don't show you like the ugly part, and the ugly part of that was when Yoda hopped in his ass real quick and was like, hold up, bro. That little conversation, you know, that was, you know, that was great for me, because sometimes all you need to do is have a conversation with one particular person and your whole insight will look different. And I liked that was real. That was real and like really human. Like, I really liked that. So my final answer is 8 3/4.
Love it.
Nice. And favorite kill or favorite death?
Oh, 100%. My favorite kill was old boy Snooty Booty. What was his name? Snoot.
Snoke. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't even remember his name, you know, because I don't like his attitude. So that was my favorite kill.
Yeah.
Same. Oh, it's such a good movie.
What about
I
you,
guess
Paige?
I should go next, so Emily can be last, as per usual.
I'm still like percolating around. I haven't settled on an exact number yet.
So, out of 10 Kyber crystals, with 10 being the absolute maximum, we can rate it, no higher. I rate this a 13. Because I fucking love this movie. It's the best Star Wars movie in my opinion. No Star Wars movie beats this. Wait till a retrospective. You'll hear even more.
No, I
God,
agree.
this movie. I love it. So fucking good. And my favorite kill, I have 2. No, 3. I have 3 favorite. No, 2. So my first favorite kill is Snoke, because of course.
Yes.
I agree with
I think
everything
we all
Brooke
think
says.
Snoke is a
Yeah.
fantastic kill. Yeah.
I was over.
My second favorite kill was the moment that Poe turns around, sees that Leia has revived, and he thinks she's going to join her, and she fucking stuns his ass. And the kill to that hubris, love it. I'm here for it every day.
Pose.
That was
Hey.
fantastic.
I am feeling the force from over here, because I didn't know, since she didn't kill him, I was like, I can't put that on as a kill, but that was, I was trying to figure out, was that my favorite, like, shot? Because, yeah,
Right?
loved that. Caught your hand in the cookie jar, Poe. Loved it.
I love it. I love it. Okay. I was trying to figure out what could possibly like decrease the rating for this. Like, what are the things that knock it down? And I like the misogyny is addressed and is like taken down, and so I was like, I don't know that I have anything. I am more of a rule follower than Pace.
Oh,
So,
not the role follower.
yeah,
Right?
It's a little. So I am going to go with an 11 out of 10.
Okay.
They didn't want to go. I'm gonna do 1 over. They said Because I am not a rule breaker. Love you. Long time. Long
I
time.
couldn't help it. So while I agree with you both that Snoke, the killing of Snoke and the way that, like, Kylo turns the lightsaber and then, like, turns it on from afar is awesome. That is not actually my favorite kill. And while the death of Poe's hubris is amazing and spectacular and iconic Leia, it is also not my favorite. My favorite is the moment when Holdo goes into lightspeed and takes the entire First Order fleet.
How did we not talk about that yet? Oh my God.
Because I had to pause it. Because I was hurt. I said, sister girl, I just started liking you again, and the hero shit. Like, listen, like, just... I had to pause it. Like, I was upset.
I, in general, despise when women sacrifice themselves for others in pop culture, because that's what, like, women are told to do everywhere all the time. And also, this was, like, she proved again and again that she knew what the fuck she was doing, despite Poe.
And that's the thing. That part confused me when he was calling her a traitor. I was like, hold up, Poe. Hold up.
Right.
Slow your roll. I was so confused. Because I'm just like, how did we even get here? Put your guns down. And that's why Leia just shot your ass. Like, bye.
Yeah. And I think, like, there's part of me that's like, why are they leaving someone on the ship when they're letting, like, the one ship, like, the med ship and all of that stuff? Why are they leaving someone on there? Why isn't that person able to escape with the transports? And I like, still think that. And I get, like, if they had to do that so that then Holdo could be on the ship when all of a sudden Poe's plan with Finn that alerts the First Order to all those transport ships that are escaping backfires. Right. And she has to save the day again for Poe. And then, like,
and it's like
also the cinematics of it, right? Like the visual,
why didn't they kill off
It
Finn?
is so visually stunning.
I'm a little upset. Why didn't they kill off somebody else? Actually, you know what? I didn't think about that until just now. That how come Rose stopped Finn from flying in there, but you know what?
Nobody could stop her. Like, it was Leia had to live, and Leia had to keep going.
Yoda could have stopped her.
Yoda was busy with Luke, who also had a pretty good death.
Right.
That's true. Luke's death was fantastic. That reveal, we already talked about it. So good, though. And how he fades away, just like Obi-Wan before him. Beautiful. And Yoda.
Yeah.
Did you have any jump scares?
I had no jump scares.
Yeah. We didn't talk about this one being scary. Go ahead, do it.
I had quite a few being pissed off. Because there was several times I was just pissed off. So if that counts, you can put 50-11 for me.
Yeah. 50-11. Perfect.
Perfect. I do think, like, you're right, Pace. We didn't talk about any of the, like, horror aspects. I do think that there are horror aspects. One of the things that I think, to me, resonates from horror films is the use of color. That I think horror films do a really good and intentional job at using color, especially using black and red.
Yes.
And I think that this movie did a really good job of that.
Yeah.
And I think the Zoom link that they had, at least initially, was very much a horror thing, because it was like, what is the creep? Like, it raised the tension, the anxiety, and the creep factor.
Especially when he's like showing up shirtless in a... Yeah, and when he's showing up shirtless in a room, like, gross. Talking about
that's
incels.
Just horrific.
I have a question.
Come on, get a woman's consent before you start showing up in her bedroom shirtless.
Yes.
So, in my notes, So the red smoke at the end was just the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ground coming up.
Let me read you back my notes from that. Because I was all types of confused. I'm like, where's the smoke coming from? But then when you were talking about Luke, you didn't see his footprints in the red soil, I started going, So, I put the red smoke is a good idea to make the vision hard for the bad guys. So, I think that if they use that, I don't know if they did, if they use that as a, like, technique or strategy, brava, to make it hard to see, you know? Because I was like, they're basically drag racing and smokes, you know, it's dope. I'm with it. Like, it was a good way to make a distraction. You know what I mean? That's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and then also Luke giving the dice back to Leia. Anyway, I need to stop talking about this movie. It's like, already...
Hey, now.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I wrote, find out about the gold cubes. And that's before I found out they were dice.
Those were Han's.
From the moment, I found out after the fact, you know. Shout out to Susie for not making me sound crazy.
Yep. Well, I already warned Brooke, so I don't feel bad, that this would be our longest Star Wars episode, because I love it so fucking much. I can't stop talking about this movie. But we're going to try our best to stop talking about it and talk about our next movie next week, which is going to be...
First, hold up. First, we're going to talk about our guest, Brooke. Where can people find you? How do they find you? Do you have any projects coming up?
I don't have anything coming up, but everyone can definitely find me on TikTok at Be More Misfits, and that's B as in boy, more Misfits. That doesn't really help, but find me on TikTok. You will learn more about my beautiful life and the people that I share it with.
Aww. That is our
and also
household TikTok. That sometimes this summer might be the renewing of that TikTok. We have some TikToks that are waiting to be posted.
Right.
And also some Sabbath sips / sabbatical sips where you were a frequent guest.
That
co-host
was on
of that,
my
I would say, not guest.
Yeah, she was a co-host. That was on my TikTok, but it's
sometimes
also
it was pastors going rogue. So
it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, but
well,
if we bring
then,
it back, we could bring it back.
Our next movie is next week is on Prometheus, the next and penultimate of the Alien franchise until this summer when another one will come out.
And that came out in 2000 something?
I don't know. I don't usually say the years here, but it came out in 2012.
I thought we usually did. Anyway. Okay. And our next Star Wars episode, which will be in 2 weeks, is Star Wars Episode IX, The Rise of Skywalker from 2019. And that is it for our show. Our theme music was by Matt May. Horror Nerds at Church releases seasonally on Thursdays. Please comment, rate, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Support us on Patreon and get access to exclusive movie commentary episodes, BrewTube episodes, and more bonus content by going to patreon.com/horrornerdsattchurch. Starting at only $5 to sign up, it is cheaper than a new fleet of bombers by a long shot. Follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Horror Nerds at Church, and Twitter and Blue Sky at HNACPOD for all the latest updates about upcoming films, news, and other announcements. And until next time, Godspeed, Rebels.
May the Force be with you.